Oftentimes we tend to focus on the big name models that are out there from the likes of OpenAI, Google, Anthropic. But what about the lesser known models that are said to compete with those big name models? In this video, we're going to take a look at MiniMax M2.1 and see how well it competes with those with our test prompt we've used against those foundational models. It needs to be able to produce a production-ready and secure note-taking application. Let's give it a go now. Now, the one thing that can be somewhat of a challenge with getting started using these lesser known models is getting access to them in whatever tools you might be looking to use for your AI coding purposes. In this case, I found that MiniMax M2.1 is available natively in Windsurf, so we're going to be using that. And I'll show you a way how you can get access to it in other tools that you prefer to use. So first off, you open up Cascade in Windsurf and you click on the model selection button down here in the bottom left. And by default, you're not going to see it like I am seeing it right now, but you can get it added in here when you click on the See More option. And that's where you'll get access to more of the models that are out there and available via Windsurf. If you scroll all the way down, we could see MiniMax M2 and then M2.1 beta. So that's really nice. Windsurf has access to that right out of the box. Now, I mentioned I'll show you how to access this in other tools. Stick around to the end of the video to see that part. All right, so I'm going to send the prompt that we've used against other models to put MiniMax M2.1 to the test. Now, if you're new here and you haven't seen this test that we've been doing against all the models for over a year now, this prompt is asking it to build a Node.js note-taking application. It needs to be production ready and secure. And we emphasize the importance of all that by putting some stakes on the line, by saying that I will be fired if this is not good. So let's see how MiniMax M2.1 performs with that prompt. We'll cut back in once it's done. All right, it looks like MiniMax M2.1 finished. It was fairly quick. I would say within a couple minutes there, it took to build out this application, and it had 10 tasks to complete. It set up the project, created an Express server with helmet headers, SQLite database for storing stuff, build authentication system with JWT and bcrypt. It created notes, added rate limiting. It created a notes API rather, added rate limiting, implement secure. Okay, so it did a bunch of cool stuff. I had to help it a little bit with installing dependencies there. I'm gonna click accept all, and we could see what it did security measures wise, what it implemented here. And I'm gonna go ahead and try and run this. So the first I'm gonna set up the .env file for the environment variables and then try and run it, and we'll cut back in a moment. All right, so I set up the environment variable file, and I tried to run npm start, and we have an error already. So let's see what's going on there. If it's a quick fix, cannot find module.env. So maybe it added that after I had already npm installed. I'll try npm install one more time, and then npm start. Okay. .env should be a real, let's go to this file. Is it in the package JSON? Did it hallucinate that? Okay, interesting. So there's a little knock there against MiniMax M2.1. It wants to use .env, the npm package, but it never added that as a dependency to install. So I need to go do that, fix that, and then maybe we should get past this problem. We'll see in just a moment. All right, I manually installed .env, however, and I got us past that initial problem, and it says inject the env files or env variables, 11 of them from .env. However, I ran into a new problem now with the bcrypt package, which is likely due to the fact that I'm running on Windows instead of Linux or Mac OS. So this is a little bit of a knock, not recognizing that we're running within a Windows operating system for development of this project. But let's see if I can work around this and get it at least running a little bit more so that we can actually see the site available and test it out. If I cannot after this, then we're going to just leave it as is and check the security of the code and the dependencies it chose. Quick update. I ran npm uninstall bcrypt and instead installed bcrypt.js, which is more compatible across operating systems. And then I tried running start again, npm start rather, and we ran into an issue with the better SQLite 3 package now. So I'll try it one more time. I know I said before I'll stop after that one, but let me try one more time because I want to at least get something running here. But note, this is not really a production ready application out of the box just from that prompt. We've seen other models be able to do that and get this done successfully. MiniMax M2.1, not quite so here. All right, I prompted MiniMax M2 about the problem. It's telling me npm uninstall better SQLite 3. And I can npm install with the new dependency, which I think was SQL.js or something like that. Yeah, SQL.js. And then I can run npm start. Now, something to note here, even if this works, I'm going to reject the changes that it made to fix these issues and make sure I only check in the original source that it produced without making these modifications to fix it. The reason for that is so that we get the true results from MiniMax M2.1 instead of these updated, iterated on version of the project. Okay. All right. Let's test it out in the browser. All right. Here we have the browser opened up to localhost 3000 and it looks decent. Somehow I'm already logged in though. I don't know how. I cannot log out even when I click on it. I can log in, I guess, down here, but it's interesting that there's a log out button at the top, which makes me think I'm logged in. Let's register and register. I don't know if that went through Oh, failed to fetch. So we got an error. Again, not a production ready application right now. Let's see if we can try and log in, even though that failed. Log in, failed to fetch. So it's not really, it really is not performing well from the standpoint of testing it as a production ready, fully featured application of create, reading, updating, and deleting notes. Really quick, one thing I had noticed, it was saying validation failed. So I thought maybe because my password was not meeting the minimum requirements of 12 characters, uppercase, lowercase, number, special character, which it is. I noticed that I'm now getting too many login attempts too. So there's at least rate limiting in there. There's some validation going on. It's good to see those things. Those are pluses in the sense of how MiniMax M2.1 has approached fulfilling this prompt for us. Now let's go and test out the security of the dependencies it chose to use and the code that it wrote for this project. All right, in order to test the security of our open source dependencies and the code that was produced by MiniMax M2.1, I'm going to be using Snyk's extension inside of Windsurf here. I'm already logged in and set up, and I ran the scan by pressing the little play icon there for a rescan. Now let's focus on the open source security scan. And in there we have one issue, not too bad. It's a medium level severity issue, hence the M in the orange there. When we click on that to find out more, we have a missing release of resources after effective lifetime that's introduced via the bcrypt npm package. In order to fix this, we'll need to upgrade to bcrypt at version 6.0.0. So one little knock there, not too big of an issue to address pretty quickly and easily by upgrading to a newer version of bcrypt, and then just testing that it doesn't cause any breaking changes in our code. Moving on now to the code security. And this one is a little bit more concerning. We have 8 open issues here. 3 issues are high severity inside this environment.js file. And we're looking at hard-coded non-cryptographic secrets. Why is this happening? Because the MiniMax M2.1 model chose to set up some defaults. And if you don't remember to set up environment variables, then it's going to default to these secrets and refresh secrets that are being hard-coded here. And Snyk is alerting us to this as a high severity problematic situation because it could happen. Somebody could forget to set the environment variable and it's going to fall back to these defaults. It'd be better if we just not have a fallback and get rid of this hard-coded secret here. And that way we avoid any possibility of that happening. And we'll be alerted by our build system, at runtime, that there isn't an env file set for that particular JWT secret and other environment variables that are there. So that's one thing to note there. Some of the other issues that are being reported, we have 2 that are in the server.js file. We have CSRF, cross-site request forgery protection is disabled. Nothing was added in here that we can see for cross-site request forgery protection. A lot of the other models, like the bigger models, tend to lean on CSRF. Most recently, we saw one where they used CSRF-CSRF package, which was fantastic to see that change happening over time. But in this case, M2.1 doesn't look like it implemented any type of mitigation or cross-site request forgery in the project. Moving on, we also have information exposure. Again, this is another medium severity one, not too big of a deal, but you don't want to reveal more information than necessary because that gives an attacker, malicious actor, more information when they're doing reconnaissance against your application and systems to understand what technology you're using and then use that to their advantage to find for known vulnerabilities in that technology that you're using. So that's why you don't really want to expose this type of information. So you can turn that off. It's a pretty simple fix as well, but Snyk is alerting us to that. We have a couple other ones. Oh, DOM-based cross-site scripting vulnerability in the public file. So on the front end side of things, in the public folder here, the app.js, We have a cross-site scripting vulnerability with unsanitized input from data from a remote source flows into inner HTML. And as a result, that allows a cross-site scripting attack to be executed in here where we're setting up and rendering notes. So another ding against M2.1 here, not looking so good from a security standpoint. And then the last two that we have here are also medium severity. It's insecure JWT verification method that's being used. We're using decode method and the token, but does not check its validity or integrity of the JWT, which is not a good way to go about implementing JWT token verifications and things of that nature. So while Snyk is alerting us to this, this one may be okay because this is just for the storing of a refresh token. And it's trying to decode the information to read the data out of it. However, still, you might want to verify that first to make sure you're dealing with and using a valid JWT token before leveraging the data that's inside of it, and it's not one that was made up by a malicious actor. And last but not least, we have a very similar situation where we're in the refresh API endpoint, and it's also trying to decode the refresh token without really verifying the integrity of that JWT token before decoding it. Now, I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I'll share with you another way you can access MiniMax M2.1, and that is using what's called OpenRouter. So take, for example, I would like to use Visual Studio Code. I want to access MiniMax M2.1 here. And in order to get that, I need to manage my models and add a model. In this case, we're going to use OpenRouter, and that's when it would prompt me to enter in my API key with OpenRouter, and then I can access the models that are available via OpenRouter. But you might be wondering, what is OpenRouter? Let me show you. You head on over to openrouter.ai in your browser. You're going to click on sign up in the top right-hand corner. Personally, I like using my GitHub account. Click on verify you're not a bot. Then once you're logged in the top right-hand corner, if you click on your profile information, you're going to click on and go to settings. And then once you're in settings, you're going to go to the API keys option in the left-hand side menu. You're going to click on create an API key, give it a name. In this case, for mine, I named it based on the IDE I'm going to be using OpenRouter within, which is VS Code Insiders. And then you can put a credit limit on it. You can use all of this under a free tier, albeit you'll have limited access and a limited number of requests you can make to these models under your free account with OpenRouter. Then once you have that, go into your various IDE. In this case, I'm showing you in Visual Studio Code Insiders. You can click to add a model. To this, it'll prompt you in a way similar to this. You enter in that API key, and then it'll start showing you the other models available via OpenRouter. And the way I can do that inside of Visual Studio Code or inside VS Code Insiders is by collapsing the Copilot and Anthropic, and we can see all of the models that are available to me via OpenRouter now, which there is some overlap with some of the ones that are built into GitHub Copilot in Visual Studio Code. But you'll want to scroll down to MiniMax M2.1 model and toggle on that. So when they're toggled off by default, they show with this icon here. And when they're toggled on, you'll see that little eyeball shown, staring right back at you. Ooh. Then once you have that set up, you can go back into Copilot or whatever tool you're using, select different models, and you should see the model available there, and you can select it and use it in that way too. So there you have it. There's another alternative way you can access MiniMax M2.1 model in your other tools of choice. So in summary, I don't know that I could say that MiniMax M2.1 truly competes at the same level, at least from a one-shot prompt, vibe-coded type of prompt that we've been testing with all the other models. I don't know that it really comes as close to those or is very comparative because of the fact that it wasn't really production ready and it had a good amount of security issues that were found by Snyk. I'm curious though, what's been your experience? Have you tried out MiniMax's M2.1 model? Let me know in the comments below. On that note, that does it for this video. If you got value out of it, be sure to like it down below and share with somebody who can put it to use. And if you made it this far, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and happy, safe coding, everyone.